There is a poll that was the most accurate poll of 2020 in the presidential election. And they have just dropped a poll of likely voters, margin of error 2%. In the two-way race between Trump and Harris, they have Trump up 2.7 percentage points. In the full field, which includes the third parties like Jill Stein, Cornel West, they have Trump up 3.4 percentage points. Looking at independents, they have Trump up 9. And listen to this. Looking at racial breakdowns, among black voters, they have Harris at 67 and Trump at 32. I would suggest to you, this is why she's everywhere. This is why she did Fox News. This is why she's going to do NBC. This is why she's going to do a CNN town hall. They're in a panic that she's going to lose this race.
Yeah, boy. Oh, boy. So as you heard there, some absolutely amazing numbers that we are hearing and seeing. Now, none of this matters if we don't show up and do our part. Okay, I have to say it, and I'm going to continue to say it. I know it's probably annoying for some folks, but I just feel I have a personal responsibility to add that caveat before we get into another great video, because, you know, I don't want anybody to get comfortable, because as you heard there, Trump has a 0.7% lead, less than 1%. So we still got to show up and do our part. Well, that was according to that poll, right? So we still have to show up and do our part to ensure that he walks back into the White House, because, boy, if Democrats can do something about it, they will. Okay, they will. Now, you know it's getting bad when somebody like Chris Cuomo has flipped almost, and he's coming out and saying some of the stuff that he's saying. And what y'all about to hear, I probably won't show y'all the whole thing, because I got another clip at the end that I want to show you guys that's really, really important. So, yeah, I'll just play a part of this, and it's still good. Let's dive in.
Kamala Harris is not a godsend, all right? You people didn't even like her 6 months ago. Now, all of a sudden, she's black female Jesus, the way Obama was black Jesus. And let me tell you something. He had a lot more going for him than Kamala Harris does. And not just as firsts go, but his type of campaigning, his type of persuasion, his charisma.
Bing, 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 bing. Winner, 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 chicken dinner. Okay, because they're trying to compare, well, Democrats are, Kamala to Obama. And I think a lot of black people, we learned our lesson on looking at somebody and saying, well, that's a black person, so, hey, it's going to be great. Like, no, it wasn't. So, if anything, you can blame Obama for Kamala getting absolutely, I'm trying to keep it PG here, for Kamala losing, okay? We'll say that. I had some colorful language that I was going to use with that, but I'll pass. But, yeah, you can blame Obama for that. She is not black Jesus, okay? She is not the savior at all whatsoever. I don't care how much Democrats try to paint her as one. She is not. But I got another clip that I want to show you from Fox News, and you know it's really getting ugly when Democrats are running ads, right? Democrats are running ads basically trying to say that they were standing next to Trump on this topic of discussion. Check it out.
It's very interesting that Democrats in these tough races are now crediting Donald Trump, trying to link themselves to it. Here's a montage. Watch.
Casey bucked Biden to protect fracking, and he sided with Trump to end NAFTA and put tariffs on China to stop them from cheating.
Tammy Baldwin got President Trump to sign her Made in America bill. And then she got President Biden to make it permanent.
This is wild to me. I don't see Republicans trying to link themselves to Kamala Harris and Joe Biden.
Lawrence, I thought Donald Trump was a threat to democracy. I thought he was a danger to this country. What you did, and Bob Casey voted to impeach him twice. What you saw here was an admission from Democrats that Trump policies work for America, and they're running away from Kamala Harris.
Bing, 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 bing. It is 5-alarm panic on the Democrat side, because when you have Democrats siding with Trump, using Trump as in a political ad, saying, hey, no, actually, I agreed with Trump on this. Trump was the guy, right? You got some major issues when you have them running away from the Democrat nominee, Kamala. Yeah, that is saying a whole lot. And you know what else says a lot? Now, this isn't everything, but this does say something. The betting odds.
More than $2 billion have been bet on the election already. Everywhere says Trump is favored. It's just a question how much. And so my site averages these all together. It aggregates 5 different markets where people bet money, and it puts them all together in one average. The bettors really, they look at all sorts of historical data. They look at trends. They get a feel for what's going on. And right now they say Arizona is 70% chance that it'll go for Trump. So that's how they're kind of converting the polls, plus a whole lot of other stuff into a...
That looks like a whole lot of red to me. That right there, without Michigan or Wisconsin, that right there is a Trump win. That's a Trump win. That's a W. Good night. See ya. Kamala. I was going to say better luck next time, but don't run again. No, actually, do run again. I take that back, because that's an easy opponent. All right, that's an easy opponent. But what I also want to show you guys is Nate Silver's bulletin. He's also flipped, right? You got him flipping and slowly increasing that gap. But not only that, we got to talk about Mark Halperin and what he recently had to say. Now, I showed you guys a clip of Mark, I believe it was yesterday or the day before yesterday. Anyway, I showed you guys a clip from Mark the other day that was really good. And this one, oh boy.
Now, early vote. John Ralston is the David Broder of the Silver State. He's just been there forever. He's a great reporter, and he understands how to read the early vote. Let's put up what John Ralston wrote overnight about the early vote in his state. Okay. All right. A little hard to read, but we wanted you to see the chart here. It's pretty easy to explain. The Clark firewall, that's Clark County, where Las Vegas is, where the vast majority of the state's population is, has all but collapsed. The Democratic usually have a huge lead there, 4,500 votes. The rurals are overperforming their share of the electorate. And he says, you can read this, and it's linked in my Substack. It's too soon to call it a trend, but this was a huge day for Republicans. They are ahead now in Washoe County, too. A few more days like this, though, and the Democratic bedwetting will reach epic proportions. As we said yesterday, don't overread the early vote, okay? It can change. We don't know exactly who's casting these ballots, how they're voting, etc. But every analyst I've talked to in the last 24 hours, including people who speak publicly, say if this continues, Donald Trump can't lose, because the Democrats can't possibly do well enough on election day. So, Sean, tell people how you view this data now. We've got one more day in the bank. Every state is either bad for Democrats or not good for Democrats. How are you reading it?
I mean, like I said, I've spent cycles on my heels trying to explain the cannibalization of election day voters. I had Seth Keshel on the show last night. You've had him on before. We went through the data. It is unbelievable. Like, it's almost too good to be true on our side. So I don't want to get giddy or excited. But when someone like Ralston, and just out of context, I mean, Ralston has not been a friend to Republicans over the decades. It has to admit,
he's mostly an honest broker. He's not going to write.
I have a different view, but I will say this: when my view, which is what you were asking, is when someone like Ralston has to admit something like this, that's a big deal. And so I feel very, very good about not just Nevada, but I think the folks in North Carolina that I talked to and the folks in Georgia are absolutely giddy.
Yeah. And Nevada, of course, I've said, all my sources have said that of the 7 states, that is Trump's worst. And yet this is what's happening in the early vote. Dan, before you say how you're hearing Democrats are feeling about this, what could be causing this? Besides the fact that Donald Trump went from saying only the devil votes early, what could be causing Democratic underperformance here?
Look, I mean, it's a great question, and no doubt in Wilmington they are frantically trying to figure that out. I think part of this is if you look at not just in Nevada, but so far, Democrats are underperforming in Philadelphia and Atlanta, and now we're seeing Las Vegas. And what have we been talking about on here now for months? Problems with Latinos, problems with Black men, problems with young voters. And so far, it appears that those problems have not been solved. As you said before, look, there are plenty of campaigns that have gotten off to slow starts, if not lost early voting, that have gone on to win. But when one of your calling cards, one of the things that we've been holding our hat on during these bumpy last few weeks is we have the superior ground game and the get out the vote operation, and Trump has outsourced his, and it's an unproven model. Things like this, give you a little bit of heartburn. And at the same time, Mark, as you said, Nevada is supposed to be, one of our best states. And so it appears that some of our base voters are not very energized right now.
So can I you asked Dan an interesting question, what's causing this? And I think there are three things that I think are causing it. One is there's been a cleanup of voter rolls. In many of these states, which I think has been extremely helpful. Number two, the registration efforts that happen pregame. It's almost like the preseason mattered. Getting folks registered, getting them excited, staying in touch with them mattered. And then three is, I think, the issues and the GOTV stuff on our side. The interesting thing is we've stripped roles in so many ways. Like for a while, Republicans talked for cycles about data and how Democrats had outsourced it and we had kept it internally, and it was a big mistake that they had outsourced it. And there was this big debate about what made sense. And the question now, flips on ground game, which is, did it make sense to allow some of these outside groups to do things that were traditionally done by the party in the campaign? We'll still see. But the funny thing is how many of the roles have kind of switched in the last couple cycles about which party was doing what and the critique that each side had of the other one.
Yeah. Again, we don't know what turnout's going to be like. This is a cycle coming out of the COVID cycle. Lots of things are shaking up. But I'll say again, 2 things. No one will tell you, no matter how partisan they are, no one will tell you that the early voting data is anything but scary for Democrats so far. And if on election day this trend continues, the election will be over on election day before we know who votes.
The one.
Bing, 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 bing. So I also want to show you guys this because he was talking about, obviously a lot of folks getting out early to vote, which is fantastic to see. Absolutely fantastic to see. I love it. Some of you have sent the DM like saying, hey, yo, look, I voted early. I even think some of y'all added me on X a couple of times as well. So I love to see it. Right. But the good news, and where was that data? Okay, here we go. Here is the data. The good news is that the data is showing that a lot of people that are voting early are new Trump voters. It's not the long-time Trump voters. Obviously, there are some, right? There are some, okay? I'm not saying there aren't any, okay? But most people that are voting early for Trump are new Trump voters, meaning come election day, that election day blitz will still be there. So we're tracking the frequency of voters to see which ones are voting. A voter is dropped into a bucket depending on how many votes they've cast in the last 3 general elections, 2018, 2020, and 2022. Right now, the GOP is getting more of its new voters out of the zero bucket, and Democrats are getting more of its reliable voters out of bucket 3. Okay. This can change, but so far it would suggest that Republicans still have some pop on the back side. All right. So, long story short, like I said, most voters, these crazy numbers that are coming out right now, these early vote numbers that I've shown you guys. Do I have one of those pulled up? Actually, no, I don't think I do, because I think I showed you guys some of that yesterday, so I wasn't gonna do it again today. But some of these early vote numbers, like in Miami-Dade County, right? Republicans are leading right now in the early vote. Yeah, I'm going to say that again because I don't think people really caught that. In a blue county in Florida, Republicans are leading right now. A blue county. This is Miami. Blue. Deep blue. Republicans are in the lead in the early vote. Yeah. Swamp it. Swamp it. What's the swamp the vote? I believe that's a website as well. Swamp the vote. Or as Trump would say, too big to rig. If we keep, like he said, and I 1000% agree, if we can keep up these types of numbers and still have the pop that, you know, Trump typically does on election day as well, election's over. It's over by 11, 12 o'clock on election day. It's cooked. It's cooked, right? Because I don't care how long so-and-so takes to count this or that. Bro, the margins are going to be far, far, far too wide for them to try any shenanigans. I don't care what they do. The margins are just going to be too big. That gap is just going to be way too wide to close. And that is why Trump said too big to rig. That's why one of the things, and I believe, like I said, I believe it's a website, swamp the vote. Swamp it. Because they know what's happening. They know what's going on. We all do, right? And I've said it 1,000 times. Even if you live in a deep red state, go out and participate in any way, shape, or form. Not just on election day. Be a door knocker, right? Make some phone calls, okay? Even if you live in a deep red state, I'm telling you, because that is what Democrats are going to be looking for. The surprise, right? Ooh, surprise. Got Florida, you know. Telling you. I said this yesterday too. I'm telling you, if a deep red state turns blue, it's because we got comfortable and Democrats took advantage of it. Just saying. I will not be completely shocked if that happened. That's why I always say none of this will matter if we don't still do our part. If we don't get out and vote, if we don't get out and knock on doors, if we aren't, you know, making phone calls, if we aren't doing everything that we need to do, right? I believe registering to vote is basically closed everywhere at this point. But if we aren't doing all of the things that we can do legally, we'll lose. We'll lose. But right now, we are on track to win. And we're on track to win big. Real big. So let's keep it up. Let's keep this train rolling. And let's close it out. We got 2 weeks. 2 weeks. Actually, a little bit less than 2 weeks now. Just short of 2 weeks. But we're so close. This close. This close. Let's finish strong, though. Let's finish strong. Peace and love. I'm out.